Well, welcome everyone to our New Tech Today virtual workshop for people interested in learning more about treasure hunting in their home. This is the last in our series for the summer, and this is one of the last ones we may be doing virtually and online. Our next presentations could be in person, but for today, we are online and we are working with our customers to find hidden treasure in your home's basements, walls, cellars, and places you might not have thought of. As the slide says on screen, we are taping this presentation for future sharing and broadcasting. We're going to share clips of this on our website, possibly on social media, and we'll be broadcasting on local cable access channels, including in Lakeville and Middleborough. So we ask that everyone please remain muted and video off for now at least. And just to begin here, I want to introduce you to Kyle Holmberg, who is our Communications and Energy Services Assistant and my partner at Middleborough Gas and Electric Department. Hello, Kyle. Thank you. Kyle's going to be manning the polls tonight and the videos. And he's going to be watching for your comments and your questions. He will be answering or bringing up to us any comments and questions that he thinks needs to be addressed right away. But he also is aware of what we're going to be presenting tonight. So he may not answer your questions or bring you up your comment or question right away because it might be coming up and you'll get your answer that way. So today, before I introduce you to our illustrious guest, I want to bring up a little story, seeing as we've been having themes from movies and music of the 80s. We've got tonight's theme, if it's not apparent, is back to Raiders of the Lost Ark and treasure hunting in the 80s. I've got to tell you that when I joined Middleborough Gas and Electric Department, it was in the 1980s. And it was an era of big hair. And one of the first calls I took was from a frustrated father and homeowner whose energy bills were going through the roof. And he thought he had found the reason why. His daughter had just picked up a new blow dryer that was new at the time. And she had the hairdo and she was going to be blow drying her hair every day for 20 minutes at a time. And it apparently was driving him crazy. He contacted me and said, what should I charge her? How much can I charge her for what she is using, all the electricity she's using with that blow dryer? Well, it didn't take us very long to determine a little bit of math. What's the wattage of the blow dryer? How many minutes is she using this? And we figured out pretty quickly that he should charge her about 10 cents per week for all the electricity that she was using. Well, he was a little bit frustrated with that. So what I'm talking about here today is that so many times the customers that I talk with are all about what they see or what they hear and thinking that that is the energy use in their home. But what we're going to point out today is that if you really want to find the best ways to save energy, to not lose energy, to not, even better, create energy that you don't need, this is what we're going to do today. We are hunting the places you might not have thought of, and we are going to be working with a fantastic guide tonight. So if you could go to the first slide, Kyle. We're going to be uncovering a few things. Something I like to call the O, the outrageous wasted energy. We want to show you how to find that and how heating and cooling systems can clash in your home, how we've experienced that and seen that with our customers. And also how a true energy advisor can help you find the gaps that are in places you may not have thought of and don't even think about most of the time. Our guide for tonight, our Indiana Jones, is for this adventure is the experienced expert of exceptional discovery, Bill Branton. Bill, if you could wave and say hello to everyone.
How do you do? Nice to meet y'all.
Bill is the beloved counselor and home energy advisor for Energy New England. If you have had an audit through Middleborough Gas and Electric Department recently, or even in the past, how many years, Bill? How many years have you been? 5 years with Energy New England. He has likely been either in your home or in the past year, he might have been on your smartphone or on your tablet if you've used the service. Energy New England is our energy services partner. You may be familiar with MassSave. MassSave provides these services for investor-owned utilities, the big guys, Eversource, National Grid, but municipal utilities use their own energy services, and we work with our partner, Energy New England. And Bill is the main guy that comes out to the Middleborough and Lakeville territory and works with our customers as an advisor for them, someone that you can talk with on the phone as well as have in your home. Now, let's see, what we want to start with today is we want to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of entertainment first. We want to start finding your hidden savings. And what we want to show you, though, is really what to expect when you have an energy advisor into your home and what an actual energy audit can do for you. So we can look at this next clip now.
In any season, a leaky home costs money. How do you stop it? It starts with a comprehensive home energy checkup. That's a series of tests and inspections to find out where your house could be more efficient. The end goal is to save energy, save money, and make your house more comfortable. Installing energy-efficient lighting and appliances will help. So will creating a sealed barrier around your house, kind of like putting a blanket around the outside, minimizing the leaks. Upgrading your home to save energy can put anywhere from 5 to 30% of your energy bill back in your pocket. Okay, to get a thorough home energy checkup, you'll need some help from a professional. Look for a home energy technician called an auditor in your area. Now, in this cold weather evaluation, the auditor starts on the outside, looking for problems around walls, joints, and under the eaves. If there's not a tight fit, you're losing energy and money. Next, the technician might head up to your attic to check for leaks on the top of your home barrier. That trap door could be a culprit, letting cold air pass into the house. A big part of the checkup is determining how well the insulation insulates. Insulation should be correctly installed in between all areas of the house frame. That means it needs to be evenly applied and not just jammed into spaces. And of course, if the insulation has fallen down, it's not working. Your energy auditor will inspect the holes where electrical lines pass through. If they're not sealed, they're leaking. Then it's down to the basement. The furnace and water heater could be wasting energy. The auditor will check to see how energy efficient the furnace is. Furnaces generally lose efficiency as they get older, and it could cost you more to keep yours running than to replace it with a new one. Maybe all you need is a new filter. Some people haven't changed their filter for months, even years. That gunk clogging the filter means your furnace has to work harder to heat your home. If the water heater is several years old, it may not be efficient. And if it isn't insulated, it's also losing energy. Now it's on to the ductwork. The technician will inspect connections to make sure they make a tight fit. They have to be sealed to keep the warm air going where it's supposed to go. If the screwdriver can go in the hole, it means one thing for sure: money is going out. Now for the blower door test. The energy auditor will close all the windows and doors and anything else that lets outside air in. This special fan will depressurize the home. The idea is to suck air out of the house, allowing outside air to rush into the home through all those openings you didn't know about. Okay, so with the windows and doors closed and the fan running, leaks are easy to spot with an infrared camera. In winter, the auditor will scan the interior of the home looking for cold air rushing in. Here, the darker the color, the worse it is. These black spots mean one big air leak. It's an eye-opening experience. For this house, the recessed lighting fixtures are big problems. The auditor will also take a look at the kinds of light bulbs in those fixtures. If they're incandescents, they're using a lot of energy. Warm, compact fluorescents are an energy-saving alternative. So, the home energy assessment reveals ways that energy escapes your home, costing you money. The good news is, you'll have a comprehensive home energy report showing which efficiency upgrades are right for you and where to stop those pesky leaks.
Thank you so much, Kyle. I think we have the next slide. basically provided by Bill and Energy New England, showing what the major or typical reasons that people get an energy audit in our service territory today. One thing I want to mention quickly is you can tell that Energy 101 video was just slightly dated because they're still putting out compact fluorescent bulbs, and everyone is going to LEDs today. So just make that note. So that's just a little bit dated, not too bad. Also, that blower door test is something that is reserved for us at least, and for a lot of our municipal brethren, that we don't need to require that as part of our energy audit. But Bill, I would ask, using that infrared camera, you don't have to have the seal of the blower door test in order to make that work, do you?
Well, first of all, I've been doing energy audits for 30 plus years. So in the first 20 years of doing that, there was no infrared camera invented yet. Blower door testing I did extensively in the 90s and the early 2000s. Generally, what you find is it's a good tool to use to confirm what you suspect, as is the infrared camera. That you would suspect that like that recessed light fixture, there's holes in the back of the fixture to allow the heat from the light to escape. It would seem pretty obvious that that would also lead to heat loss from the house. Since I had an infrared camera, I can now identify that, and you'll see on some of the pictures in the reports, a purple blob where the light fixture is, purple being cold, and that's just confirming what you suspected already. Anybody that is doing insulation work and air sealing work, I would suggest that they should do blower door testing, and most importantly, they should do combustion testing of the heating equipment to ensure that you don't make the house too tight, that combustion gases are not able to escape the home.
And the people who are doing that work for them, the contractors who do that work, can provide that kind of testing. Is that correct?
Yes, any listed contractors that do insulation work, I'll give people a referral list. Those contractors have all been trained in combustion testing and blower door testing. Even though they may not need to perform the blower door, they certainly should be cognizant of what issues can happen if a heating system doesn't have enough air supply to vent properly.
So when I look at these homeowner concerns that we have up right now, and number one and always is a high utility bill or a recent increase in a utility bill for some reason. And I can tell you from Middleborough Gas Electric's point of view, our rates stay so stable that it most likely is due to some kind of a change in use in your home. Other than that, it might be an uncomfortable environment, something that's always been a problem that you finally want to take care of. And then finally, the last reason, and from our point of view, a very important reason, is to be qualified for rebates and incentives for the kind of new technology that's coming out, because what we really want is for you to have a nice, weather-tight, well-sealed home so that you're not creating energy with these new technologies that is going to be lost. Or what we keep calling lost. Now, I've got some questions for you, Bill, that I think that's going to enlighten everyone with some ideas that you and I have talked about before. This idea of what an energy audit is, from your point of view, when a customer asks for an energy audit, what do you anticipate they're going to want?
Well, typically when somebody requests an energy audit, our customer service rep, Dory, will ask them what their major concerns are. So every audit, I get a summary of what the major concerns of the client are. So I usually start off with that because that's their main reason for calling. Once we've identified what their major concerns are, then my standard procedure is to go through the items in the house, like the thermostat settings, the age and efficiency of the heating and water heating equipment, the lighting, the insulation, the windows, the doors, the major appliances. And then last, but certainly not least, in my opinion, is safety. I've seen some, when you were asking for treasures, I'd say some of the bigger treasures I found have been things that could be life changing or life ending,
You know, and
improperly vented.
Yeah, and when you were bringing that up in your notes, I thought to myself, boy, that was something I hadn't thought of, or a customer might not be thinking of, what they're looking for. If there's a failure of equipment, if there's something happening that has changed within their home, this could be a safety issue as well. So what kind of things are you talking about that you did find that were safety related?
Well, I don't know if you have the pictures or not, but I've seen a couple of, yeah, there we go. So the picture in the middle is the outside of a house, and that's what I saw as I approached the house. And I said, boy, I hope that's a clothes dryer or something more benign. But when I got inside, it unfortunately was the flue exhaust for a wood stove. Obviously, flue gases try to rise, and asking them to go in the downward direction is asking for carbon monoxide in your home. And then the second picture on the bottom right is apparently the flue pipe was not well sealed. So some Reynolds wrap was brought in to try to alleviate that situation, which again would not be an appropriate or safe way to go.
Well, I'm sure these aren't the only things you've bumped into, but absolutely, safety is one of the first things on your mind, and certainly on our mind too. We don't ever want to be intrusive into people's lives, but when they do give us this opportunity, it definitely is one of the things we always want to be looking at, is the safe operation of heating equipment primarily in New England. So back to energy for a minute. You and I were talking earlier about the fact that I was assuming that, you know, if we create energy and we don't use it, then we're wasting it. But you had a different take on that, and it had to do with thermodynamics.
Yeah, well, this came from, I had a client who was a school teacher, and he was trying to give his children an education while we were doing the virtual energy audit. And I said, well, you know, he was concerned, again, typical father, about the daughter with the long hair. He was concerned about his children leaving their lights on all the time, and that's a waste of energy. So when I had the children, I said, what you really want to impart to your father is that you're not really wasting energy, you're helping it to transform. So the first law of thermodynamics says that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, it can only be transformed. So when you turn on an incandescent light bulb, 90% of the energy going into it is creating heat, and only 10% is creating light. In the reverse, an LED light does the exact opposite. 90% of the energy is generating light, and only 10% is wasted heat.
Right, right. And you also mentioned that heat isn't something that moves. It's something that's transferred. And how do you describe that? It was the three modes of transference or transmission.
Yeah. Three ways that heat moves are conduction, convection, and radiation. And the way I usually explain that is conduction would be when we shake hands, if we are allowed to do that again, you'll feel that my hands would be warmer or colder than yours, and I'm conducting my heat to your hand. Radiation is go stand outside today under the sun and it feels wonderful. And when you get under a tree, it feels still wonderful, but less warm. That's because the sun is not radiating on you in the shade of the tree. And then convection is moving air. So just literally blowing on your hand. If a window is not closed all the way, you'll have convection loss.
Okay, and so
and that also that heat doesn't just rise, heat will travel the path of least resistance. So if I'm standing on a concrete floor barefoot, my heat does not rise, my heat goes down into the concrete slab.
Okay, but
So
in heat, basically, it's not heat rising. I think you said it's the air rising because it's heated. Is that
Yes,
the way?
hot air will rise because it's less dense, but heat will travel wherever it can find its opposite. Everything tries to be neutral, and if it's 70 in the kitchen and 60 in the bathroom, the 70 from the kitchen will try to run to make the bathroom 65, and they'll both end up being 65 at some point.
And you know, that's what we used to say in the business way back when, more than 30 years ago, heat goes to cold. And the idea that it's heat loss, but what it is heat trying to get to the cold areas in the wintertime. But if we keep thinking like that, it becomes a little bit more obvious where to search for these places that are allowing this to happen, you know? And then I think one other thing, an issue that we talked about earlier too, was that we want your house, a lot of people will think this, and I know I've been one of them, your house needs to breathe, or at least we feel like it needs to breathe. But is that a myth? Is that a, are we thinking that it's good to have little places that allow heat, you know, air to move?
Yes, but it should be specific. A house needs to breathe, or more correctly, a house needs to be properly ventilated. So the example I use would be, back in my early years, I used to smoke, and I would go to the bedroom on the second floor and crack a window and sneak a cigarette out the window. And my wife down in the kitchen would say, "You're smoking again." And the reason she could tell is because the hot air from the kitchen would rise up the stairway to leave the bedroom window, and she could sense that air change in the house.
Yep.
So by venting the bedroom, I was creating airflow without really any plan. So the areas of the house that need to be most concerned about ventilation are the areas where pollution is made, which is typically the heating room, the bathroom, and the kitchen. Because moisture, not technically a pollutant, but moisture will add mold and mildew to a home. And if you don't rectify that, you'll have lots of problems. And then sometimes the uncontrolled ventilation works contrary to the heating equipment, which is typically the biggest pollution source in the average American home, is the heating and water heating equipment. So if you're losing heat because you're not well insulated, you're forced to turn on the device that pollutes the air most in your home to make up for the heat that you're leaving.
Right. So that I think you pointed out to me that that the leaks don't necessarily provide fresh air because it's the heat that's going out, not bringing fresh air in. That source of replacement air usually comes from below and through, you know, where, as you said, where the heating equipment is.
Correct. And again, that's usually the worst part of the typical home is the basement. It will tend to be musty and have combustion appliances in there. It's typically where guys will store their paint and turpentine and other pollutions. And by letting air leave the top of your house, you're bringing more air into the bottom of the house, which is usually the lousiest air you can have in the home.
Yeah. And well, and again, so that the idea is we're trying to shift people's thinking from the fact that, you know, air sealing is somehow going to trap pollution. That's not necessarily true. You do need a good ventilation system, but you need to be a lot more weather tight than you realize. And that's what we focus on first, is the weather tightness of your home. And I think, what have we got coming up next, Kyle? I think that might be our first poll. Yes. So after we've been talking for a little while, what we try to do now is get the opinions or the thoughts of the people who are in the audience. So if we can, please ask everyone here who's with us tonight, have you had a home energy audit already? And this is a free service provided by your utility. By the way, any utility in the state of Massachusetts, it's free to a resident. And allows your energy advisor, in our case, Bill, our Indiana Jones, to review your home systems and weather-tight framing elements to search for energy loss. So let's let everybody get a chance to answer this one. We'll wait for a moment to get everyone's answers to see where we're at. Keeping in mind, of course, that the viewing audience may be later after this recorded session. So this is just simply who's in the audience tonight. For those who have not had an energy audit, you'll get a lot more information in just a moment about how to do that. We think we have the answers, Kyle? Yes, we do. All right. Once more than 10 years ago, once as a Mass Save customer. Recently to get a rebate. Thank you very much. And not that we have one that does not remember getting one at all. Okay, so they were pretty much split. That's what I would expect. So for the next poll, we want to ask you then, what do you think might be the biggest reason that might stop you from scheduling your own free home audit? Sometimes it's about convenience. And for those who have this question, yes, you can have a second home energy audit. We usually ask for a fresh audit every 3 to 5 years when programming changes. And when you think about it, if you've done some work in your home, it's very valuable to have a refreshed audit that will take into account your new energy use situation. Okay, 50% don't have time during the day. All right, so skeptics who don't think they have hidden heat loss, and those who don't think that they could afford that. We'll be addressing some of these things as we go a little bit later on. And I think we have one final poll for our customers tonight. What are you looking for energy saving treasure today? Or why are you looking for that? Your number one reason. I think all of them apply, but probably your number one reason.
If I could interject, Sandy?
Sure.
The people on question 2 that, find the time constraint, that's one thing that I found in the past 15 months is doing the virtual audits on FaceTime or Google Duo. I've seen a lot more people that were able to squeeze this into their schedule more readily than, actually an in-person visit.
Yep.
And I'll even work a little bit late into the evening to get people home from work on time. Whereas previously, I wasn't very thrilled about doing a 4:30 appointment where I'd have an hour commute after that.
Yeah.
So I think the virtuals have done a lot to both bring people more in touch with what the problems in their home are, and to make scheduling appointments, and for our purposes, rescheduling. Like if somebody has to cancel, I'm not stuck in Lakeville with nothing to do. I just pick up the phone and call up somebody up in Middleborough or somewhere else in Lakeville, and I can do their audit on the fly.
The world has changed, and I think in some ways it is absolutely for the better. Do we have the answers to this poll yet, Kyle?
We do, yes, and everyone wants to save energy and the environment.
Okay, good. We're not having technical difficulties today. That's good. Everyone wants to save energy and the environment. We did, oh, thank you. We did put them together. It could be either or, but most likely and most fortunately, it's probably both. So I can probably say everyone wants to save money as well. And we appreciate that no one said that the utility bills were too high. So thank you for that. Okay, so let's talk about the actual experience of an audit. Why you would need an audit for savings. So first off, for those who haven't had a free home energy audit within the last 3 to 5 years, here's exactly why you may want to have one right now. The thorough top to bottom inspection helps you understand what you need to be doing first, second, and third, and things that you may not have thought of. If you haven't seen that already in the video, and if we haven't already brought it out, including safety issues. So we highly recommend that you're going to find things that you hadn't anticipated in the home that you're in. It's especially good if you've just come into a new situation. What's the next item, Kyle? That's right, the priorities. I've always loved this about the report, even the old style. It definitely listed what was going to save the most, not just money, but energy. And everyone has different priorities, as we saw from the last poll. It tells you, the current audit report tells you what you will save in terms of energy and dollars, and how quickly it'll pay for itself. And then finally, the audit tells you what you'll be saving about the substantial amount of energy which qualifies you for the rebate. A lot of the rebates that Middleborough Gas and Electric Department offers now for home energy improvements, including generous rebates for insulation and rebates for new technologies such as heat pumps, things that you'll want to try that are far more efficient today. These require that we have a good review of your home and your home's weather tightness, so that you're not creating something that you don't need to be using. So next slide, please, Kyle. This is the place you need to navigate yourself to, which is the Energy New England website. The left-hand option, Home Energy Assessment, is what you want to click on. And what we want to say about this too, and Bill will jump in, I'm sure, they have the option still to have a virtual audit. And I think, Bill, you said you just started doing in-home energy audits again. Is that true?
No, not quite. I've had one or two special cases that I felt compelled to go out. Again, I had an elderly client that wasn't technically adept enough to do it on the phone. And again, some safety issues that I wanted to see in the flesh. But officially, we don't have a date. I personally would feel comfortable in the near future, as long as numbers stay positive where they are. But again, I've seen, and I've made a few conversions of people that were skeptical that a virtual audit would be useful. And I'd say the response has been 99%. This was a lot more useful than I thought it would ever be. And in many cases, more useful than previous audits they had done in the flesh.
Oh, that's great. And yes, the audit, by the way, has come a long way. But in this case, people go to, and we're going to provide all of the links that we're going to be talking about today at the end of this presentation. It's going to be on a slide that you'll have available to you at the end of this presentation, and will also be on our website. So when you click learn more, this will give you the method that you're going to online put your information in that will allow Bill to get in touch with you to schedule your virtual audit right now, and potentially an in-home audit in the future. So this is what's going to happen next. Then once you're scheduled, you're going to start the search in your home. And that would be entering what we used to call the envelope of the house. And what is an envelope? Well, an envelope is a term that we have a tendency to use as the exterior, basically the walls, windows, doors, everything about your house that stops energy from leaving or doesn't. So we are going to be looking at things like all of the openings, doors and windows, caulk and cracks, holes that you wouldn't believe you might find in a home. Now, one of the things that we want to talk about too, kind of the elephant in the room, sticking with our Indiana Jones theme here, the elephant in the room is usually windows. Mass Save and Middleborough Gas and Electric Department, a lot of MLPs have stopped rebating windows alone. as a method to increase energy savings in a house. Generally, if you go through Mass Save, you'll find that you have to do a lot of other insulation along with windows in order to qualify for their rebates. We focused all of our dollars for insulation on walls and attics and spaces, crawl spaces and so forth, because we found that people needed to spend the money there more than they needed to spend the extra money on windows. We found that a lot of our customers, when we were in rebating insulation, windows upgrades, they wouldn't be adding insulation to the house. They would simply be putting in new windows. And that's where all of the money was going. And we got guidance from the State Department of Energy Resources that basically said, you need to be looking at the entire envelope. I don't know what your experience was, Bill, but that's the guidance that we received. And that's why we stopped rebating windows as a standalone improvement. I know they do get recommended from time to time in the audit.
Yes, I will, and I do recommend new windows when it's appropriate. I did work for Mass Save for the first 20 years of my life doing this work, and I encourage them to stop offering rebates for windows because it was typically the least cost-effective measure you could do. Not because they don't save energy, but because they cost so much to do. And the unfortunate nature of windows is, well, the commercial that you see on TV typically now is telling you that windows are the biggest area of heat loss in your home. That is correct. What they fail to tell you is after you buy new windows, typically windows will still be the biggest area of heat loss in your home.
Exactly
because
right.
Glass will not insulate as well as a wall with fiberglass or an attic with cellulose.
And you're not going to get rid of windows. Let's be honest. People still want windows in their home. But, you know, we've got a little video that was produced by the Department of Energy, I believe. I think that comes up next, Kyle, if we have it. Let's take a peek here. That'll give you a clue about this.
Okay, I'm gonna have to open it on YouTube.
Okay.
Because
We'll all have patience for just a moment. I think first you pull it up and then you screen share. I could be wrong. I am so glad to have Kyle. I have to say this right now. I could not talk and do that at the same time.
I'm doing my best.
You are doing well. Thank you, Kyle.
Okay, just a second.
Sure.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
When I talk to homeowners who want to make their homes more energy efficient, they often tell me that replacing their windows is the best way to lower their energy bills. I'm Lynn Huckabee from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, and I'm here to bust this myth. To see why, let's start by taking a look at how homes lose heat. During the cold months, homes lose their heat through gaps and exposed surfaces. Any gaps in your house, in doors, windows, walls, or attic, will cause warm air to escape and cold air to sneak in. This is called heat loss by convection. Additionally, the exposed surfaces in your house also lose heat by conduction. Like a cup of hot coffee warms your hands, your home transfers heat through exposed surfaces like external walls, windows, exterior doors, and attics. So here's the truth. Replacing your windows isn't the best thing to do to lower those energy bills. Why? Because they're expensive to replace, and in many homes, they simply are not the largest exposed surface. So, you want to improve the energy efficiency of your home while getting more bang for your buck? Eliminate cracks around windows and improve your wall and attic insulation.
Thank you very much, Kyle. I appreciate what you went through to do that. So if that is the most expensive thing that you can do to try and save the smallest amount of energy,
We're here to help. Our replacement window cost estimator will help you.
Hang on one second. We'll let Kyle go back to screen sharing the presentation. There we go. We wanted to talk, yeah, we do have a slide here presented by Energy New England, actually, Bill. That was upgrades to any energy efficient insulated doors. You can add a storm door. But it's funny that the note that you have in here that adding a storm door to a newer insulated door is not generally worth the expense. Some people will want to add an extra door, and that doesn't really work if you already have an insulated door. But I loved seeing something like this too, that talks about the fact that a door sweep, or simply making sure that the cracks around the door, the base of the door is where a lot of heat loss will escape in so many homes. People aren't seeing that because they're not down there, you know? And I think the next slide, Kyle, thank you. We're going to go for what we usually call the no-brainers, or what we used to call the low-hanging fruit, right? The next slide, I think, shows something that we've seen a lot of. I know, Bill, you have, and this is a great example of what you can catch with an infrared detector. And that is the hole in the ceiling, otherwise known as the attic catch.
Yes, and that's a typical, what we call a scuttle hole that's just barely big enough to fit me through. More often than not now, you'll have a house that'll have a pull-down stairway, so double or triple the size of that opening. And it's equivalent to leaving a window open the entire winter, the amount of heat loss that can occur through a simple opening into the attic space.
Wow. And again, one of those things that people, how often do we go up into our attics? And we usually try to avoid them. There are so many places we try to avoid in the typical home. And that's why it's great to have a guide who has been doing this before, has done it many times. So you could fit through it. Do you actually go up into those spaces?
When I can, I do. Or as I say, doing them virtually now, I have many clients that are willing and able. They don't have to literally get into the attic. If they can get their head in their iPhone, I can generally see what they have for insulation and identify whether it's enough and whether it's well positioned. I don't know if you have the slide of, I sent you a slide of some dirty fiberglass. I don't know if you still have that or not.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that in another slide shortly. Yeah. But what does that show you?
Well, you know, some people just pop up in the attic, they see a bunch of pink stuff and they say, yeah, I'm insulated. It's just that these days we want 12 inches of insulation in an attic, and most houses typically have 6 or less. So just because you have something in the attic doesn't mean you have enough, or that it's doing its job thoroughly, which again, I think you'll see better when that other picture shows.
Yes, and I think the next slide.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yep. And go ahead.
So the picture in the middle is fiberglass. This is a sky view. So I'm standing above this person that's holding the fiberglass, and I'm taking a picture looking down on him. So he peeled back that piece of fiberglass, and you can see the dark perimeter of dust. And this is a house that burned wood, so a little dustier than an average home. But the dust is actually what I would use prior to having an infrared camera. If you see insulation looking like that, you know that there's air leakage through the insulation.
Oh, wow.
And the insulation alone does not stop air leakage. The infrared photo there is showing you, again, me looking down on somebody's attic. Purple is cold, gold is hot. And this is a wintertime picture. So why do we see gold coming through the fiberglass? Because there's gaps and holes underneath the fiberglass that are not well sealed, and the fiberglass is just filtering air.
That's amazing. And I'm going to assume, I mean, there are places with crawl spaces that equally need that kind of insulation, though it's a different method. And you would want people to find those spaces as they exist in these homes.
Yeah, and I'd say probably that one of the simplest things of the way people think about their home is it's more cost effective and more practical to find ways to keep heat in as opposed to trying to keep cold out. Meaning identify where you want your heat to stop and do your work there, as opposed to, like, I've seen some people with like a wraparound porch, and they put all new windows in this wraparound porch that they have no intention of heating, simply because the door that abuts the porch is cold. And it's like, well, you could have insulated the door to the porch a lot more cheaply and easily than weatherizing the entire porch.
Right.
So again, keep heat in as opposed to keeping cold out.
I know exactly what you mean, and I do have what's usually referred to as a 3-season porch. And I did not put expense in the windows in the porch. I put it into the door, the barrier between the porch and the interior of my home. And that's really where you want that stoppage. You're right, you're keeping the heat in rather than trying to keep the cold out.
Correct.
Yep, a good point. And the next slide, I think, brings us to arriving at the artifact. Oh, first, that's right. We are looking at insulation depth, insulation coverage, and the gaps. Thank you very much, Kyle. All right. Weatherization and insulation. Again, we brought these up so that people watching this later could also get some more information about what you found and what we basically just talked about, how the walls, specifically in an attic, need to be insulated. But there's far more information about this, and it certainly helps to have guidance. This kind of material is included in the report that you produce at the end of these audits. Is that correct, Bill?
Yep, these are literally from a report.
There we go. And the next slide, Kyle, I think, is arriving at our biggest users. All right, and we need them, the biggest users being specifically your heating and cooling equipment. And when we say cooling, we also think of your refrigerator, your water heaters, your air conditioning, and I add also, just because I can, dehumidification equipment. These are items that you really want to have operating. You want the highest efficiency you can get. It's worth replacing them usually. If you haven't replaced them within 5 to 7 years, well, 7 to 9 years now, you get a higher efficiency level. It will pay you back, and they need to be maintained correctly. Filters are the easiest things in the world to change out, to clean. That's what needs to happen, and it really does make a difference. I think, what is our next slide, Kyle? Okay, arriving at the artifact was what we were talking about there, is the heating and cooling equipment. And the furnace that we're talking about. This came again from a report, directly from a report, I believe, 95 to 98% efficiency. And what's great about this information, including information about ductless mini splits, it gives you enough of the information and the recommendations at the end of the report that qualifies for what you want to try to do if you want to go for these recommended upgrades, and what Middleborough Gas and Electric Department can rebate. And the next slide, please. All right, the higher efficiency boilers, efficiency ranges from 86 to 97. And heat pumps, again, They are cold weather, what's called cold weather rated heat pumps today. They do operate very well in New England and in our area. And we are rebating heat pumps pretty generously right now. I can tell you too that because I live in an area that is not served, unfortunately, by Middleborough Gas and Electric Department, but is served by another of the investor-owned utilities, that I can install heat pumps in my home, but I am not allowed, I'm not qualified for a rebate if I do not change out the entire system in my home or subordinate any other heating system in my home. That is not required by Middleborough Gas and Electric Department at this time. We're letting our customers try this new technology and the best method for them. So long as the home is reviewed for weather tightness, so long as people know what they're getting into, and that's what an energy audit will provide for you. And the next slide, Kyle. And here's what the home energy assessment looks like. Boy, that's almost a scary looking picture of that home, Bill. Do they all end up with a picture in infrared of their home? I don't think you do it all year long, do you?
No, the infrareds are only valuable if you have about a 20-degree delta, meaning if it's 70 in your home and 50 outside, we can get a good picture. And frankly, from the exterior, that's usually not the best view at all. Interior shots are much more vivid. Basically, what you see on this house is cold purple windows, which is kind of typical, but you really can't tell much of anything else going on in that house.
I see. Good. So you want the interior pictures, and again, there needs to be a real variation in the inside temperature versus the outside temperature in order to make that work. But
Correct.
this is typical of one of the pages that you might see. I think we might have another one, Kyle, in the next slide. Yeah, there we go. And it's what you see here, just one example of the great illustration in these reports now that shows you what you should be looking at. Rim joists, I had never seen a picture of a rim joist insulated before, so I'm so glad to see it now. I don't know why it makes me so happy, Bill, but it does. And that infrared, what does that show there?
So that's showing you the rim joist, or some people call it a band joist or a sill. So the infrared photo is showing you the square that's purple, which is what that sill was doing before somebody put styrofoam board insulation in it. So again, purple being cold. The purple below it is the concrete foundation, which we expect to be cold. But the cold at the sill will transfer cold right up to the kitchen floor above. So it's one of the it's a pretty neglected area because it's somewhat difficult to get to, and it's not really, you know, in your mind and in your vision all the time.
Right. Again, and that's what we're talking about today, is that hidden treasure. People that tend not to look at very specific things. This is the value of having the audit done. It's really taking a look at places that you, as a true aficionado of energy, we won't call it loss, energy movement, you know where to point people to so that they can find the spaces that are causing their discomfort, maybe. And I think the next slide brings us right to the idea of what the recommendations are in these reports. I think this comes also right out of a report. I'm not sure that it does, but it's got that, the savings to investment ratio. Do you want to mention that for just a minute?
Sure. So the second measure there listed, sealing air leaks in the home. That would be specifically, well, what we just saw there. Insulating the sill area is considered an air leakage point. Insulating a pull down stairway, insulating around penetrations in the ceiling. So in this house, the calculated savings was $208 annual, with about a $509 cost to do the work. And then a savings investment ratio of 6.1. Basically, it's explained lower in the report. It tells you what an SIR means, but basically what it means is If a savings ratio is less than 1, or excuse me, 1 or higher, that means the measure will pay for itself before the measure would need to be replaced. Or I always used ROI, return on investment. In this case, it's pretty simple math that in about 2 1/3 years' time, the money saved will have paid for the work.
Exactly. Well, otherwise we call it break even, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, you're going to break even in 2 years to seal that air leak with a simple installation on the rim joist there, or seal those, excuse me, the air leaks.
Correct.
I mean, that kind of makes it a standout. Now we have to do the SRI. We have to conform to certain state standards, and that's why that reading is in there. But definitely, it becomes obvious to anybody how quickly something like that pays for itself, which is a great thing to have a report like this. And the next slide, Kyle. Yeah, so now we want to talk about what we tell people to do. When should they go after these savings? You know, how can they do it that makes sense to them? And what we learn is that most people are going to make changes to their home, you know, because they are already ready to make changes to their home. So, for instance, I just did a little room kind of creation in my attic loft. In order to do that, I had to change the insulation levels. I had to do a lot of work up there and then added in a little bit of heating. While you're doing that, it makes sense to reach areas that you haven't reached before or didn't met code when they were first done, but now can be updated and upgraded. Do you have any kind of advice that you give to people, Bill?
Yeah, especially as we get into a particular season. So now we're into the air conditioning season. This is the worst time of year to be buying an air conditioner. And unfortunately, that's when everybody finds out that their old air conditioner is no longer working or working well. And they're kind of stuck making a decision under duress as opposed to being able to plan ahead. So again, I think the best time for an energy audit is yesterday. Even if you don't anticipate wanting or needing a new heating system this winter, it'll be nice to know what the value would be beforehand. And then some cold night in September, when you turn the furnace on, if it makes a horrible noise and smoke comes out of the floor, at least you'll know what the potential savings of the new item would be and what rebates are available. And you can shop at your leisure as opposed to shopping with a furnace not working.
Thank you for wrapping that up with a ribbon, because that's exactly what we said at the bottom there. Don't wait until the big systems fail. We find that that's the worst point when our customers are calling us when something's failing. They just have to go back to what they had before and usually can't afford to do any kind of real upgrade at the same time. So thank you for that. And the next slide, Kyle, I think talks about what we want our customers to know when they, after they've had an audit. Claim your rebate after your audit. We have a very generous insulation rebate. You can use the report. Oh, go ahead. If you can use the report to work with your professional to get the work done, because there's a lot of very valuable information in that report. And then apply online. The rebate portal has been working beautifully at Energy New England. And you can talk directly to Bill if you have specific questions about what is being proposed since you had the audit done. And what do we have next, Kyle? Oh, yes, go back to that for just a moment if you could. We want to remind everyone here today that's watching this that when you have work done in your home for which you might be eligible for a rebate, you need to claim the rebate within the same year. That is, our fiscal year runs the calendar year, and our budget, because we're a municipality, it's like taxes. We actually have to do what we budgeted that year. So if you had work done, for instance, in 2021, if you wait until 2022 to put in for the rebate. We cannot rebate you out of 2022 budget funds. So we usually let people go until January 31st of the next year, allowed to go ahead and apply for their rebate for the previous year. Then we have to close out the books and say that we can no longer fund rebates for the previous year. So it's very important for people to realize if you're going after a rebate, put in for your rebate right away. That's the best way to approach that. Thank you, Kyle. And the next slide. Basically, we have another option for people too that we also wanted to mention. For those who have had an audit recently, perhaps already, or wanted to take some time to just start looking into and comparing different projects in their home, we also present the My Energy Expert home energy assessment. It's a quickie. It is a self-service, what we call self-service audit. It's not as friendly. It doesn't provide as much feedback necessarily as working directly with our intrepid Bill Branton. But we did want to say that for those adventurous hunters who want to put in all the data themselves and have been down this path, and maybe they have had an in-home audit, you're about ready to start a renovation, you don't want to wait for an audit, or that is, you don't want to refresh an audit, you can try this new online assessment. And if you're a first-time user, you can claim your free box of LED light bulbs. So we are going to include that link at the end of this presentation as well. And we are nearly at the end of this presentation. So we're going to go back to our guide. I think we have our last slide coming up now, Kyle. Yes, these are all the resources and links to the videos that we presented today. But I do want to talk with Bill about just a few questions that we've been collecting. First of all, Kyle, did anything come up in the chat while we were talking?
No, nothing's come up yet. I think we're doing a great job of explaining, and that's why.
Kyle, you're so good. Okay, Bill, we have collected some questions over the last month or so that we wanted to present tonight too. And I think this is going to be some good give and take here. We'll go through this pretty quickly. We did say, and I think we've covered this, but people were asking about so many commercials about saving energy by changing all of my windows, and that the financing is great right now. Aren't there any savings that make this worthwhile? When would changing windows make sense, Bill?
Well, there's other reasons people want to replace windows. And I think, again, that's part of the reason that many utility programs no longer fund rebates on windows. People want to do them for a home renovation, for ease of maintenance, for aesthetic appeal, resale value. You know, the new windows do increase energy efficiency by up to 30%. So an existing double pane window or a window with a storm would have an R value or a resistance to heat loss factor of about 2. New windows have an R factor of 3.5 to 4 because they have special coating on the glass that reflects heat, and they have gas in between the panes of glass that insulates better than just dead air. So I'm not saying it's never a good investment. It's just always a long-term return on investment because the initial cost is so high.
And our value of, what did you say, up to 4 is so
Correct.
small when you think about what insulation value is, you know, so.
Right, and in attic, we want to have R49, and in walls, we want to have R19. Thus, that's again why windows are always the biggest area of heat loss in a home, because you see through them. And it makes window treatments a very worthwhile consideration also.
There we go. There is something that people don't think enough about. There are many different ways of shades, including light blocking shades that help in the summertime. There's so many different ways to treat windows that can help with energy savings that aren't about replacing the windows. So that's something to bring up, and it's a good point. We have another question that's very apropos here in Middleborough too. Is what if I'm renting an apartment what kinds of things could a renter take advantage of or do? They obviously are not going to be insulating within walls or attics or anything like that.
Yeah, well, again, a perfect example, window treatments that typically people are going to buy regardless because they want to have privacy. If you look at a mini blind compared to a cellular shade, and if you're not familiar with a cellular shade, think of the fabric of an accordion, little honeycombs of dead air.
Mm-hmm.
Then imagine that you had to wear that outside in the winter. So wrapped up in a mini blind, it's all slats letting cold air through versus a honeycomb fabric will insulate you better. And then with the insulation rebates that Middleborough is offering, I've had many landlords and tenants together doing an energy audit so the landlord can get the house insulated with a very generous rebate from Middleborough, which helps them keep a tenant happy and paying their rent on time. And the tenant is, of course, happier that they're warmer and paying less on a gas or an oil bill.
And I was going to bring that up too, and I'm so glad you did, Bill, as well. I want to say to every renter out there, please mention to your landlord that we have one of the most generous rebates for insulation. And if they have not considered adding to the insulation in their 3 to 4 family or even 2 family, whether they live in it themselves or not, we absolutely are allowing up to $1,000 per residential unit. So up to $4,000 helping landlords or homeowners in insulating rental apartments, rental units. So please, every renter out there, please bring this up to your landlord. It's definitely a valuable and generous rebate that will make everyone use less energy. And it was all add to the value of their home as well.
And another, if I may, another thing that not every renter is eligible, but if anybody is lower income and they're eligible for fuel assistance programs, many people receive fuel assistance, but don't realize that they're also eligible for weatherization programs that will insulate the home at no cost.
Thank you.
And the landlord loves that.
You and I are simpatico, I swear. I was thinking the exact same next item. For those people who are wondering about how they can afford the recommended insulation upgrades, those who are really the levels of income now that qualify for fuel assistance or any kind of assistance today are much higher than they used to be. Probably more than half of our customers might qualify for this assistance, and they absolutely can qualify for what's called a weatherization assistance program, which is paid for by the Fuel Assistance Agency and actually grant funded by Middleborough Gas and Electric Department. So those who are struggling to meet those, paying for their energy bills, might be surprised how much help they can get to upgrade the insulation levels of their home. So I also want to say that we had another question here about finding contractors to do the work. I know we talked about this earlier. You and I did, I think. I'm not sure we talked about it on this presentation. If someone asks you how to find a contractor, for instance, to add their insulation, what do you typically tell them?
Well, Mass Save has compiled a large list of insulation contractors that work for their program. And even though you're not utilizing the Mass Save program in Middleborough, these contractors are, they're citizens that can do work for whomever they wish. So I'll give my clients that list of insulation contractors, and I'll tell people also that they can reply back to my messages that if they have 2 or 3 proposals that are different, I'll help them review them to find what might be the better solution with a better price.
That's fantastic. Again, that's the kind of guidance that we want to make sure that our customers at Middleborough Gas and Electric Department have. And that's exactly what we need. And I'm going to ask one last question here that I almost can answer myself. We had a question about, should I switch my old oil heat to new technology. And that obviously is a personal decision. There are new oil heating furnaces and boilers out there that are much higher efficiency ratings, but the most highly rated efficiency heating unit today is the new cold weather rated heat pump technology. And Middleborough Gas and Electric Department is offering some very generous rebates on heat pump equipment. We are not, again, requiring customers to destroy or take out their old heating equipment. They can use that as a backup. They can try the new technology of heat pump technology before removing their older equipment. But as we've said before, both Bill and I, don't wait until equipment fails to start looking into this and to make this decision. But before you try to go for this new technology, you need to have a home energy audit. And again, we're going to recommend that all of our customers who haven't had one in the last 5 years have a new or fresh audit of your home. And you'd be surprised, the new report, the new process, everything is really far easier and far more in depth, I guess is the best way to put it. We have newer, even just using infrared that we've started using in the past 5 years is a step up from where we were way back when. All the years ago that I did this, Bill, and you did this, how many years ago? We won't even mention. I think that wraps up all the questions we have. If there's anything else you'd like to add, Bill, I think we're good.
No, with an energy audit, even a virtual audit, we do still send out a package of LED light bulbs and an intelligent power strip and an LED night light. So you'll still get a bag full of energy saving devices to use. And yes, I agree, the heat pump technology is definitely something to be considered, but insulation and air sealing should be considered in conjunction with.
Exactly that. We don't want people creating energy that they're not going to use. That is the waste and that is the treasure if you don't spend the effort and the cost to try and create something that you don't need. So start by not needing it first. That's the first step. So this has been a great conversation tonight, Bill. We really appreciate you coming here. And Kyle, I really appreciate whatever you went through. I know you're still in the office. I think it's time to go home. We're going to wrap this up tonight and thank everyone for attending. And we will be rebroadcasting this both on Lake Cam and MCAM in Middleborough and in Lakeville, and in bits and pieces and clips on our website and on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for coming and have a lovely evening and a wonderful summer.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.